Alright boys, so I've cooked up a build on Vex I think is going to be absolutely insane. If you want a build that can apply every single element in the game at the same time, this is what you should do. I think this build is going to be really strong. If I hadn't already decided to start Rafa, I would definitely run this build because it's going to be ridiculous. We're going to be using the skill Dead Ringer. It lets you either spawn Spectres, which shoot, or Reapers, which are more melee, and this build is going to go fully into Spectres. So just keep that in mind. If you wanted a Reaper build, this is a Spectre build. You're going to see the word Attunement come up a lot during this, so just a quick explanation on what Attunement means. Basically, if you switch to a fire weapon, you are attuned to fire. Then if you switch to a corrosive weapon, you stay attuned to fire for 6 seconds, and then you're attuned to corrosive as well. So basically, whatever weapon you're holding, you're attuned to, okay? And the Spectres basically spawn with whatever element you are attuned to at the time. So if you're holding a fire weapon and you summon the Spectre, then you have a fire Spectre. That's how it works. Okay, that's all out the way. Let's get into the build. So we want 2 points in Sanguine Friends, and if you're wondering why we need health regen, our Spectres lose health over time, so health regen actually increases our Spectre's DPS uptime, so it's actually a damage buff for this build. Then 3 points in Cold Iron, we just want bonus gun damage for both us and our minions. It's a pretty straightforward one. So when we pick our first element, you can basically pick whatever one you like. We're eventually going to go Wither, so this is just something we're using in the meantime. Gas Blaster makes your Spectres shoot out a little ball of energy that does damage. But I'm going to go into Coven because then we can spawn Reapers and Spectres and make it so we have health regen and crit chance, which should make us a bit more tanky and more comfortable in the early game. Then 5 points into status effect damage. We're going to try and apply every single status this game has to offer, and it's going to buff all of that, so this is an absolute no-brainer. Grave Fiends gives us 30% bonus damage at max stacks for both Vex and her minions, so this is just a great pickup. Then we also want 2 points in Grave Quickening to reduce our action skill cooldown rate when we get kills, so we can actually use our Spectres more often. We then get Blood Sacrifice, which re-triggers our kill skills every time our minions die. So just keep that in mind going forward. Every kill skill, like Sanguine Fiends, Grave Fiends, and also Grave Quickening, they all get reactivated every single time a minion dies, which is absolutely insane. We have to pick this one. And now we get to swap to Wither, and this is when things start to get really insane. Your Spectres will wither an enemy, which makes them take 30% more damage from everything, and also they will take a status effect based on whatever your Spectre was attuned to at the time. And also every time we kill a withered enemy, we get to spread that wither to another enemy, so we should always be focusing enemies that have been withered to keep that spread going as we're fighting. Prismatic Ecore is where the avatar part of our build really comes online. When Vex or her minions apply a status effect, apply another random status effect as well, for 150% of the initial status effect damage. So follow with me here. We can have a Fire Spectre that burns the enemy, then applies cryo damage on top of that. Then we can be using a corrosive weapon that also applies shock damage as well for 4 elements at the same time. And honestly, it just gets even better. Keen Suffering makes it so all of those status effect tick damage we're doing can now crit. So all the status effects from all 4 elements we're applying, plus Wither's status effect dot as well, all have a chance to now crit, which will dramatically buff how much damage over time we do to anything we shoot. Then we get to our Capstone Heirloom. This allows one of Vex's Spectres to hold our gun. And I'm willing to put both my nuts on the table and say there will be a weapon in this game that makes Heirloom absolutely broken. Just how it was in Borderlands 3 with Zane, where you could put the Sandhawk on his clone and basically destroy everything. You may be a bit concerned that our clone's gun does 25% less damage than our one, but you have to remember that Wither makes enemies take 30% increased damage, so this clone will actually be doing 101.25% gun damage, basically as strong as our shots. We then come up to Burning Attunement, and this is when we start getting into the attunement skills and swapping our weapons for bonus damage. Basically, every time we're attuned to Incendiary, Vex and her minions gain crit damage and status effect application chance. Crit damage buffs Keen Suffering crits, but the status effect application chance also buffs this as well, because of course the more status effects we're applying, the more crits are likely to occur. So we're going to want to keep weapon swapping or just using an incendiary weapon to make sure we're attuned for as long as we can. And if you see at the bottom there, it says attunement duration. So if we swap off our incendiary weapon, we keep the buffs of burning attunement for 6 seconds. Then we move over to prismatic weaponry, and this is where things get even more insane. Basically, it makes so all of our crits, so headshots, deal bonus damage, which is a random elemental type for each attunement we have. So if we're just swapping our weapons between shock, cryo, incendiary, corrosive, it's going to be buffing this and increasing the damage our crits do. You're probably wondering, why do we want to crit? And that's because we're going to go into the incarnate tree for our last 10 points. We first get 5 points into Grave Sight. That increases our crit damage, which buffs our keen suffering down here. And the last thing we do to make this build even more ridiculous, we get 5 points into Bloodletter. This gives us a 25% for all of the crits we're going to be doing to also bleed the enemies. And if you remember, if we're attuned to fire, so we're just getting headshots with an incendiary weapon, we increase our status application effect chance by 30%. Meaning our bleeds go up to 55% chance to apply. So just think about that for a second. We do a headshot, it gives bonus elemental damage from prismatic weaponry. It also crits them, and also because of prismatic eco, it applies another status effect, and our Spectre is hitting the enemy, who will be applying their own status that also applies another status effect, meaning quite literally every status in the game, including bleed, can be applied to one enemy at the same time. And the last thing we go into is shoot to go. We're going to be swapping our weapons so much that having this will just make the build a bit more comfortable to play. This build is going to absolutely shred in terms of damage, but some of you might be a bit worried about survivability, so here's the solution for that. If you do find yourself dying, instead of going this green tree, we go into this red tree. We can grab Hasty Fiends, which gives us a very nice 15% move speed, but also 21% flat damage reduction for both us and our minions. So it keeps us alive more and also makes our minions last longer, which is really great. And then we'll finish that off by going Overprotective. Kills give both us and our minions overshield, which makes us more tanky, makes our minions last longer. And then when our minions die, it also triggers again to give us even more overshield. So that would be the tanky, comfy version if you're finding yourself dying. I am really excited to see how this build plays out. I won't be starting it at launch because I've already said I'm playing rougher, but please let me know how this build goes if you try it, because I think it's going to be absolutely bonkers. If you have any questions about the build or think I should change anything, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya!